Okay, so let's go. Let's talk about self-trust and how you build it in yourself and your child. And what's important to know is that these are stages and they're building blocks. The first foundation of self-trust is this. Most people don't realize. Sorry, can you read that? Maybe I should write that again. I'm going to do that again. Okay, the first stage, body. That's better, right? So body is that I can trust my body in how I feel. So I can trust if I feel hungry and I want to eat something. I trust if I'm hurt, I'm injured, and it actually does hurt. I trust if I'm not feeling well or I'm feeling fatigued. It's the body level sensations. So the first is the body. I'll explain a little bit why that matters. The second level, wow. The second level, we're talking about emotions. That I can trust the way I feel. When I feel sad, when I feel happy, when I feel proud. That I can trust that that is in fact how I feel. The third stage and the third layer are decisions and actions. That I can trust that the decisions I'm making for me and the actions I'm taking are in fact the right ones, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Even if in the moment I later, I do something and then later I might change my mind, that's okay. I can still trust that I can do that and that I'll find my way. And then the last stage of self-trust is self-actualization. That I can trust in what I find meaningful to me, in my purpose and alignment, and then I trust that that's the direction I wanted to go. So it's built up in layers like this. You actually can't have this without moving through and building this up. And it's very, very difficult to tap into, for example, a trust in what you're feeling without having access to the body, which is why so many of us struggle with this. Because what most of us don't realize is that in actuality, 80 to 90% of our body and the way that we're wired, and some of you will have likely heard me talk about this before, but 80 to 90% of our vagus nerve network, which is the part of our nervous system that is wired for stress responses, that we're actually wired. So if this is a brain, and this is our nervous system, and this is us as a person, that 80 to 90% of our vagus nerve network is actually transmitting from body to the brain. 80 to 90%. And only 10 to 20% is wired to transmit information from the brain to the body. It's for this reason that so much of what we hold as information and data, I call it body intelligence, especially around our stress response, the way we feel and the experiences that we may have, are actually held in the body. And then that information is transmitted to the brain. And yet so many of us are taught to dissociate, suppress, ignore those feelings because they're uncomfortable, because they're messy, because they're not professional, whatever the reason might be. So we're trained to ignore so much of this and we don't have access. But the foundation and the first step to gaining self-trust and confidence for you and your children is actually the body. And that's the key. Let's go through a couple examples of each of these. So at the body level, that might look like a meal related to finish your plate. You can't possibly be full. That's a really common one, and it's always well-intentioned because we're worried about how much nutrition and intake our kids are having, and we're not trained to trust our children around that. And truth be told, it's tricky because sometimes our kids are just trying to run away from the table to play more or do something else. That is fact. And so with this one, use your discernment and start educating your children on what fullness feels like, what hungry feels like, what enough feels like for them. and talk about the sensations like when I'm full, I feel really satisfied in my tummy, or when I eat so much that my tummy feels so full that I almost feel uncomfortable. That's a little too much, right? Like teaching them those sensations so that when you're having these conversations, that's what they can go back to. Health and wellness is another one. Trusting when they say that they're not well. And again, this is one that's tricky because sometimes I recognize that our children will say, I don't want to go to school today because, right? So again, it's using your discretion, but believing them when they say that they're not feeling well, or there's often a sign behind it that's leading to why they are communicating that to you. There's often something behind it. It might not be exactly the thing that they're talking about, but what is the stress? What is the other factors that are playing into it? And get curious and explore rather than being quick to judge. So that's another one. Talking about the emotions piece. So there's something that I recommend, which is called a feelings wheel. You can pick it up in a lot of places, Amazon, for example, and it looks something like this. So there's usually 2 circles, and then there's the different feelings. For example, it might be happy, it might be sad, it might be mad, and then it actually starts to split out into the different emotions of what it might represent. So happy, for example, might be comfort, it might be joy, it might be, and going through the different things and those feelings and exploring it with your children to give them the vocabulary to express if you've got younger kids. And if you have older kids, really listening and paying attention to them and validating what they're telling you and reflecting back what you're picking up on can really help to support. And with that one, it's all about building the emotional foundation and awareness of understanding what they're feeling and validating them that there's someone that believes them when they say that's in fact what they're feeling, so that they can build the trust in themselves that I can own how I feel and it is in fact mine. That someone else is not telling me that that's not true or that's not what I'm feeling or I shouldn't feel that way, for example. So examples of this are situations where, and we've all been there, where your child maybe is having a hard transition going to school or maybe daycare or summer camp and they don't want to go in. Maybe it was a really great weekend and we say, be brave for mommy, or don't cry. And the problem with those, even though they're well-meaning, is that they're actually communicating non-verbally to your child implicitly that what you're feeling is wrong. And oftentimes it is actually more about our comfort level or convenience. And I'm not saying that in any judgmental way. Reality is real. Timelines are real. Maybe you have to run to work, right? We don't have time to sit for 20 minutes. But oftentimes the validation and helping them to understand and validating what they're feeling can be much faster and more powerful than trying to get them to skip it and bypass it, because that's only going to make the feeling last longer. So instead of be brave, it can be something like, I can see that you're feeling really anxious right now, and it makes sense because this is hard and it's new and you haven't done it before. But guess what? I've seen you do hard things before and you've done so well, and it makes me proud. I know you can do this too. I believe in you. And notice how that shifts. The next level is the decision-making and actions. Obviously a little bit older in terms of the kids, if you're talking about kids, but this starts to get into the confidence in which they're making decisions that are right for them. And sometimes the most difficult decisions, there's no one right answer. And so the way to explore it is actually to notice and pull in, the decision is to pull in those previous 2 steps. 1, this is supposed to be the body. You know what? I'll just write it out. So 1 is at the body level. And the other one is the emotions. Because the right decisions that are best for you are going to feel like alignment. And you are going to feel like an expansion. It's going to feel good. It's going to feel peaceful. You're going to feel bigger, more confident. Whereas the wrong decisions are the opposite. The wrong decisions, you feel smaller. You feel stressed. You feel anxious. It makes you feel more constricted. And that's how you often know. And the way that you get into it is actually you explore what comes up for you in terms of your emotions and what are the bodily sensations in your body as you notice how it feels as you're stepping forward into those decisions. And you can always change your mind. It's absolutely okay. There's nothing weak or bad about changing your mind on decisions that you're making. All of that then ladders up into the last one, which I talked about, which is the self-actualization. Knowing what feels right for me in terms of what's meaningful, what brings me joy, what gives me purpose in life. And that's the last one, which many of us want to get to. And that one is a ladder up of all of the previous steps that we talked about. So body, emotions, it's a combination of these, the decisions we're making, all the way up to the last one, which is the self-actualization. Actualization, sorry. Lost track there. And that is how we help to build self-trust, is these steps and then practicing them. And they don't have to be big, big things. They can also be in the small moments. As simple as, what do I feel like having for dinner tonight? What does it feel like to choose for myself? Do I want to go on that outing? How do I feel about that? And what's really beautiful about this and what's powerful is that when you start to teach your children to notice what they're feeling in their body and that it's true for them, and what they're feeling in terms of their emotions and what's true for them, so that they can decide for themselves the actions and things that they want to take on, it also starts to build a defense against the things that are coming at them that other people may be saying or doing that don't feel right for them, that they can choose. It can be the sports coach at school. It can be a teacher. It can be a pastor. It can be a group leader, whatever that might be. It could be a school bully. But it's building the self-trust at this level and building up so that we anchor our children in knowing that just because someone says something about me, to me, does not make it true, and that I can choose for myself what is actually true for me. And so often our children don't trust and believe the things that they're told because they're true. They trust and believe it because they don't know that it's not true, especially when it comes from an adult, especially when there are dynamics around respect your elders, authority, etc. Obey. And I'm not saying that obedience is not a good thing. I'm saying that there's situations where allowing them and giving them the permission to think for themselves, that they don't have to go along with everything they're asked to do, especially if it's harmful for them or if they don't feel comfortable with it, because that is how grooming starts to happen. And it can be a slippery slope. If you're feeling really burdened and you want more support, I'm here. And if you want to talk through your situation and develop a bit of a roadmap or a plan in terms of how to approach it with my input, then please feel free to reach out and book a call. All of my clarity calls are 20 minutes and they're free. There's no charge and there's no sales. I'm happy to meet with you. Talk to you soon.